Hello everyone, my name is Mario Martinez and this is Amateur Medicine. So great to see you guys again. I've tutored a bunch of students in the past for the National Registry, either online or in person. I found that a lot of people actually struggle with test taking strategies. So that's something that I wanted to go over, and more so just, are you effectively studying? So I'm going to be questioning a couple of these things. I'm going to see if you can relate to any of those, and maybe this can help you out and push you to the finish line for the National Registry, or just testing in general. I wanted to first go into time management regarding studying. Let's say if you have a 6 or 8 hour window where you're like, hey, I want to study at this time, make sure that you break up your time effectively. What I would personally recommend, and just letting you know, I have an associate's as a paramedic in emergency medicine. I have a bachelor's in cellular and molecular biology. I'm currently going through RN school right now, but I've taken quite a few classes and I've had to study fairly effectively for a couple of them, especially some of the harder science classes. Just to give you some background information on why I'm talking about this topic. Whenever I study for 45 minutes approximately, and then I give myself about a 5 or 10 minute break. So if I'm in my room and I'm studying using my computer, well, what would I want to do? In about 30-45 minutes, hey, maybe you know what? Now I'm going to go ahead and take my laundry, I'm going to put it in the washing machine. 30-45 minutes occurs, I'm going to go put the clothes from the washing machine to the dryer. 30-45 minutes have occurred, now I'm going to take my clothes, I'm going to spend about a good 20-25 minutes and fold them. And that's just one example. Maybe if I have some food that's going to go in the oven, I'll study 30-45 minutes, put my food in the oven. Hopefully it takes around 30, maybe 25 minutes. And then afterwards, I'll go in, check it out, see if it's about ready, and then eat, and that'll be my break. So we really want to be careful that we're not studying too long without any breaks. What I mean by that, more so, is I've seen students will come to the fire station, they'll want to study for the EMT-B, for the AEMT, or for the paramedic test, and they'll pull out their book, and they'll be focusing on their book the entire from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. period. And I'll usually remind them, I'll be like, hey, make sure you take breaks in between. I don't want you to burn out. You don't have to be studying the whole time, at least while you're writing out with me. If you're studying for that long, you may read page after page, but do you actually understand what you're reading? And what I like to do a lot of times is I'll take a step back. Let's say if I read a paragraph, and I'll ask myself without looking at the paragraph, and I'll say, what did I just read? And then a lot of times I'll realize I have no idea what I just read. I just read for the sake of reading. And so I'll read it again. And then I'll take a step back and say, what did I read? I realize I don't know it again. And then I'll go back and forth. And then I'll effectively understand the paragraph. It may take me a while. There's some keywords that you may be able to notice. But for the most part, don't just read to read. Don't just do practice questions to do practice questions. Take a step back and say, what did I learn? Don't look at it. You know how whenever I do my study guide videos, if you guys have watched them, I'll ask you to pause the video and say your answer out loud. This is a very important thing to do whenever it comes to studying. So stop what you're doing, stop your practice question, turn your screen away, and then ask yourself, what did I just learn? And if you can't answer it, that's good that you caught it. Take a look back and reread everything, and then ask yourself the same thing again. You may be struggling with that concept, something that I personally still struggle with every now and then, but whenever I can catch it, it really helps me kind of understand the material that I'm reading. Another thing, if you have a family member and you're going over a topic, see if you can teach them about the topic. If you have a friend who's taking the same test you're taking, let's say for the National Registry, see if you can teach them about your topic at all. Let's say if you're going over trauma, let's say if you're going over a pneumothorax, for instance. I want you to talk to your friend and see if you can tell them some information that you may need to know as an EMT-B, an AEMT, a paramedic, and see if you're able to regurgitate any of that knowledge. And maybe they can teach you a little bit too, and vice versa. For studying, if you're doing any type of practice questions, by the way, you can find some practice questions at amateurmedicine.com. We have a great study bundle for the EMT-B and AEMT, just hint, hint if you're looking. But whatever practice questions you're utilizing, you should tackle them in 2 different manners. The first is you should be studying to learn. What I mean by that is you should go through the practice questions, you should look at the answer choices, you should see why the answers are right, why the answers are wrong, and then learn about them accordingly. The second way that you should be analyzing these practice questions is you need to understand time management. It's extremely important. So for the National Registry, for instance, you have questions either ranging from 70 questions all the way up to 120 questions, depending on how well you do. The paramedic may be a bit different, so please don't quote me on that. I'll have to look that up on my own. But at least for the EMT-B, it's 70 questions up to 120 questions. If that's the case, we need to look at how much time we have. And generally you have 2 hours. I think actually for the paramedic it's 2 hours and 30 minutes. Again, don't quote me. I'll put it in the text somewhere here. So if we have 2 hours to take the national registry for, let's say, the EMT-B or the AEMT, and we have up to 120 questions max, well, if that's the case, then we have approximately 120 minutes for 120 questions. That means that if you have to go through the entire test, we have 1 minute. Let's say if you're doing 20 practice questions at a time, take your phone, put a timer for 20 minutes, use like the stopwatch function or whatever you use. And I want you to go through 20 practice questions. Don't look at your phone. And then whenever you're done, take a look at the time, see how long you took. Maybe in those 20 practice questions, you took 35 minutes. Well, now we need to cut down that time. Let's say if you do 20 practice questions and you only spend 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, well now we need to take a little bit more time. You may either be answering the questions too quickly or you may be answering them too slowly. Both can be adjusted with some practice. It's good to take about 45 seconds per practice question, but you don't want to accidentally go a little bit too quickly to the point where you accidentally miss something that was very obvious if you would have just spent another 5 seconds or so. And again, we want to make sure that we're going at approximately 45 seconds to a minute max, because if you're at question 90 out of 120 and you only have 5 more minutes for the test, well now you're going to have to rush through everything and you might have blown your chance whenever you're really close to that 950 score that we're trying to reach. Whenever we're studying for the National Registry or any testing in general, it's really important that you eat something the night before, that you eat something in the morning before you go take your test. I like to eat a protein bar. That's just something that I really enjoy. It's a little sugary. I like a little bit of sugar to increase my energy levels. I also will take a little bit of caffeine. I try to use the restroom right before I take the test, but then also if I'm talking to a proctor, I'll say, hey, what are your rules for using the restroom? And kind of knowing that I can like pause the test and leave at any time to use the restroom kind of gives myself a little bit of peace of mind. So understand some of the rules that you have. Understand if you have a scratch board before you take the National Registry. If that's the case and you're able to take a scratch board, utilize it, write out some stuff, maybe ponder a little, ask yourself a couple things. I like to make little notes here and there as I'm going through the test. And also, the most important thing that I'm going to recommend to you is understand percentages whenever you're doing these practice questions. Whenever I go into any test, and I utilize this for nursing test, I utilize this for paramedic test, I've utilized this for science test, any type of testing that has multiple choice answers, understand percentages. Let's say we have a standard A through D style questions, right? And we have almost no idea what's going on. Let's just say we have a bunch of scribbles, but somewhere along the lines, whenever I'm reading the question, I can say, hey, you know what? At least it's not C. I at least understand C. Let's say if it is albuterol and I see that they're breathing just fine. I don't see any obvious signs of wheezing in any way. I don't see any obvious sign of respiratory distress. And let's say, again, C is albuterol. Well then, hey, why would I administer albuterol at this time? Just by being able to do that, I'm able to increase my odds from 25% to 33%. And that's the name of the game for these type of questions. We want to try to increase our odds as much as we can, because I'm not going to know everything on the National Registry. You're not going to know everything on the National Registry. For any type of test, we're not going to understand everything that's on the test. That would be insane. But we'll know some of the test. We'll know some of the answer choices. We'll know some of the questions. And then we're going to build up from there. We want to increase our odds. So the answers that we know, for sure, if we think that we know it perfectly, you have a 100% chance to be right. That's awesome. But a lot of times, we're going to have one great answer and one okay answer. Or one great answer or one good answer. If that's the case, yeah, it's like a 50-50 odds. But giving yourself that 50-50 chance is so much more important than it sounds. And that's what we're going to practice today. I was debating whether I wanted to write out the answer choices or if I wanted to type them out. I think I'm going to type them out. I think that'll look a lot nicer on your end. Again, we'll have our answer choices for A, B, C, and D. And so our first question is going to be something really simple. It's not even going to be EMS related. Mario's favorite color doesn't have a U in it. Which color is it? And our answer choices is A, green, B, red, C, blue, and D, gray. I understand what you're thinking right now. This isn't EMS related, but trust me, it's all going to tie in really well if you play along with this. We see that the question says Mario's favorite color doesn't have a U in it. We have green, red, blue, and gray. We can already tell just from this question alone, it's not going to be C, because C has blue as the answer choice. It has a U in it. Now it's just a guessing game. We don't know if it's A, B, or D. And that's what these questions are going to be like. Sometimes we're not going to know every single answer choice, but what I can do is I can definitely say it's not C. And that's the name of the game for the National Registry. That's the name of the game for almost every test. If you can carry this model whenever you do any type of multiple choice questions, it can hard carry you through so many different types of tests. I would highly recommend getting good at this. So we're going to go again. We've increased our odds to 33%. That's all I wanted to show you in that one. Let's relate this to EMS now. We have a test question, and let's say it's 2 paragraphs long, right? And in those 2 paragraphs, you see part of it that says pupils are 3 millimeters and that they are perla, or pupils are equal, round, reactive to light, and they accommodate. The answer choices are oral glucose for A, B is naloxone, C is epinephrine, and D is ondansetron. And we're taking this test in regard to somebody who's taking it as an EMT-B. So if the answer choices are oral glucose, naloxone, epinephrine, and ondansetron, and we're taking this test as an EMT-B, what are some obvious answer choices that we can cross out? Well, if we know what an EMT-B can administer, right away we can tell that D is incorrect, because that's a medication that you could administer for nausea for an AEMT or a paramedic. So right off the back, we can cross out D immediately. We're not going to administer ondansetron. We can't do that. We're not an AEMT. We're not a paramedic. It'd be the same if we saw a practice question that had A, B, C, and let's say D said administer insulin. Even if you're a EMT-B, an AEMT, a paramedic, at least for the National Registry, we are not allowed to administer insulin. So that would be a very easy answer choice to cross out. If we understand naloxone, we know that it's utilized for opioid overdoses. Do you know a sign that we would visualize regarding opioid overdoses? Are the pupils dilated or are they constricted? So give yourself a moment. Consider pausing the video here. For an opioid overdose, are the pupils dilated or are they constricted? Well, the answer is the pupils will be constricted. They'll be like peppercorns. Do you know the sizes of pupils? If I tell you that the pupils are 3 millimeters, is that normal? So the sizes of pupils are going to generally be on pen lights, but I'm going to give you a little graph right here if I can remember to attach it onto the video. It's my favorite Google image regarding pupils. But generally 3 to 4 millimeters are normal. 1 to 2 is what we'd expect to see for an opioid overdose, and around 5 and plus would generally be seen for somebody who is experiencing an upper overdose, which can be a couple different drugs that I don't want to talk about since I'm doing this on YouTube. But regardless, the pupils are 3 millimeters, they are equal, round, reactive to light, and they accommodate appropriately. If that's the case, then we know that we're not going to administer naloxone. And now, without knowing anything else for the test question, we can already say, okay, it's either going to be A or C. So we've gone from a 25% chance to a 33% chance, because we know that EMT-Bs can't administer ondansetron, to a 50% chance, because we know that naloxone, also known as Narcan, isn't going to be administered for somebody who has pupils that are equal, round, reactive to light, they accommodate, and they're at 3 millimeters. The actual answer choice doesn't matter. The importance is the power of understanding that we're able to increase our odds from 25% to 33% to 50%. That's going to happen a lot in the National Registry. Getting good at this is really important. Let's do another question. For an AEMT, let's say you have a question that says that they have breath sounds that are vesicular. They have a respiratory rate at 16 breaths per minute. EtCO2 is at 39 millimeters per mercury, and their SpO2 is at 96%. Your answer choices are A, oxygen, B, albuterol, C, glucagon, and D, midazolam. If you know what an AEMT can administer, then right off the back, we can cross out midazolam. Why? That's because it's a sedative used for paramedics. An AEMT can't administer that medication. So no matter what, that answer choice is going to be incorrect. We have 3 other choices. Do you know what breath sounds are vesicular means? If you don't, then okay, we went from a 25% chance to a 33% chance, right? And if that's the case, if we have to leave it right there, then okay, do any, mini, miny, mo. If you don't understand anything else, for instance, like your baseline vitals, pick one of them and then move on. But we may understand our vital signs. Our respiratory rate is at 16 breaths per minute. The normal range is between 12 to 20 breaths per minute. ETCO2 is at 39 millimeters per mercury. If you know your AEMT ETCO2 range is between 35 to 45 millimeters per mercury. The SpO2 is at 96%. The normal range is between 95 to 100%. So we would know we're most likely not going to administer oxygen. I say most likely. Sometimes in the National Registry, they will still pick oxygen along with other treatments, even if they're breathing just fine, which I don't personally agree with, but that's the National Registry. That's the nature of the beast. So I like to do a little squiggly, like a little approximation, if I'm kind of in between one of the answer choices. So I'll put a little squiggly by A. For B, it's albuterol. Well, breath sounds are vesicular. If you know what that means, it basically means that the breath sounds are clear. I'm not seeing the patient in any obvious signs of respiratory distress. If that's the case, I can cross out B fairly confidently. Glucagon, I'm not sure if we can administer glucagon or not, but I'll put a little squiggly here. Without knowing anything else in that question, I would more so lean to glucagon being the correct answer choice, just because oxygen wouldn't make any sense. Their SpO2 is fine, their respiratory rate's fine, they're breathing appropriately, and their ETCO2 looks good too. So if you're a little bit unconfident of the two answer choices, that's okay. That'll give you a 50% chance to answer this question appropriately. If you are confident in your vital signs ranges, if you are confident in understanding what breath sounds or vesicular means, then without knowing anything else, I know that A can't be right. I know that B can't be right. I know that D can't be right. So without reading any more of the question, I already have to say it's gotta be C. And if we read more into the question, maybe it'll say their blood sugar is at like 39 units. And if that's the case, then glucagon would be an appropriate answer choice. Let's do another one now. Hopefully this is kind of building up and you kind of are seeing what I mean by percentages being really valuable. So let's say we have a question and it says that the patient is 35 weeks pregnant. We have A, ectopic pregnancy, B, prolapse cord, C, placenta previa, and D, abruptoplacentae. Can you tell me what the answer choice is? Can we rule anything out? Well, generally, if you know about ectopic pregnancies, we know that these complications occur between 4 to 12 weeks of pregnancy. If you do know that, then right off the bat, just by telling how pregnant the patient is, we can cross out A. Congratulations. We've gone from a 25% chance to get it correct to a 33% chance. Can we go any further? Okay, if we go to 35 weeks pregnant, and let's say we reveal just a little bit more of the question, and it says that the patient is presenting with bright red blood. We don't know anything else. It should be a dead giveaway if you kind of know the difference between placenta previa and abruptoplacentae. Let's just say, okay, it isn't really adding up to being a prolapse cord for B. So if that's the case, we'll put a little squiggle right here, but we're kind of like, maybe it's not B. Well, now, if we can't remember the difference between placenta previa and abruptoplacentae, then that gives us at least a 50% chance to get this question correct. By the way, if you see bright red blood and the patient isn't complaining of pain, then we would lean towards placenta previa. If they have blood, it's generally not described as bright red blood, it's more so just blood in general, and they're experiencing abdominal pain, we'd go to an abruptoplacentae, or a placental abruption. However, if we're confused between the two terms or we really don't know, that's okay. We've gone from a 25% chance to a 33% chance, all the way to a 50-50. That's so valuable for the National Registry and any testing in general. So I would get really good at doing this. Now let's do a paramedic style question. And fellas, I can't wait to start going into paramedic knowledge. I am so excited. I've written out a AEMT PDF. It's like 29 pages long or so that you can find on amateurmedicine.com. Plug in, right? Find ways to plug it in. But it's actually a very good study bundle, and it includes a 29-page PDF. I haven't gone into paramedic yet just because that's going to be a whole new beast, and I'm so excited for it. It's probably going to have to be like at least, I'd imagine, 40 to 50 pages for the PDF alone. And even then, will it really encompass enough? I'm so excited for it. For our next question, we have, let's say, 1 or 2 paragraphs. Who cares? But we see that the patient is actively seizing. And that's all we see. Our answer choices is Valium, Versed, magnesium sulfate, and atropine. A is Valium, B is Versed, C is magnesium sulfate, and D is atropine. So we know as a paramedic, if a patient is actively seizing, we want to stop that seizure immediately. And if that's the case, we're probably not going to be messing with atropine at this time. It's not very pertinent. So we'll go ahead and we'll cross out D. Now, our other 3 choices are 3 different sedatives. And if you're a paramedic, this is extremely important to note. If we reveal just a tiny bit more of this question, and we see that the patient is currently 36 weeks pregnant at this time, then if you do know your sedatives really well, then you're gonna know that you're going to choose C. They're gonna administer magnesium sulfate, at least initially, because we want to avoid harming the fetus. There are some exceptions depending on your protocols. If, for instance, you administer magnesium sulfate, it's not working and you still have a very long transport time, then potentially we may need to consider another sedative, but by then I'd be contacting medical control, blah, 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 blah. That's just extra bits of info to know. If we're not very confident in our sedatives, we're like, this is a sedative, this is a sedative, this is a sedative in some instances, then at least we have a 33% chance. If you didn't learn magnesium sulfate that way, but you know for a fact that you're not going to want to administer Versed for a pregnant patient, then hey, if you have that little bit of knowledge, then we've gone from a 33% chance to a 50-50. So we've gone to a 50% chance overall to answer the question appropriately. And if we do know that magnesium sulfate is used for pregnant patients that are seizing, because we think about preeclampsia before the seizure and then eclampsia during the seizure, then we move towards mag sulfate. We'll generally administer 4 grams of magnesium sulfate at this time. But at the very least, let's try to get our odds to 50-50. Realistically, this is kind of like a freebie for the Paramedic National Registry. It's going to be magnesium sulfate. So that's going to be the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this kind of format. I thought it'd be a lot of fun to teach it kind of like in the classroom setting. Let me know in the comments below if there's any test taking strategies that you'd like to utilize and implement. But I think we hit an okay amount at this time. Just remember, if you can't remember anything else, of course we want to remember effective studying. We want to remember stopping, asking ourselves if we really know what we're reading. If we're able to teach somebody else, that's fantastic. We want to study not only to get good at understanding the questions, but we also want to make sure that we're within the correct time limit. So if we have 120 questions and we have 120 minutes, let's get that down to about 45 seconds. Don't answer your questions too quickly. Don't answer your questions too slowly. And the most important thing, get good with percentages, guys. Going from a 25% chance to a 33% chance to a 50-50 chance to get the question right. It's gonna carry you through medic school. It's gonna carry you through EMT-B school, AEMT school, whatever type of schooling that you're doing. It is the bread and butter of going through any type of testing. And I cannot recommend it enough. If you did like this video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing. It always helps out a lot. I love seeing your comments. Thank you real quick to our channel members. We'll put them here. I gotta kind of move now, right? I think we've got like 11 of them at this time. They're all fantastic people and they are super sweet. There is somebody, one of our channel members, I keep on seeing them on Facebook. I'm gonna put her name even like right here. We'll figure out a way to put her name in there. Every time somebody's asking about a test prep, I see her comment recommending my stuff before I even get a chance to recommend it. So a special shout out to you. I try to like heart your comments, but you are very sweet and I appreciate that a lot. If you want to consider being a channel member, I'll leave a link down below. We also have a link to our Discord. If you're looking to join a community where we have a bunch of people that are like-minded individuals talking about EMS topics or just questions in general, you can find me in there. I'm trying to reply every day and I've been doing a pretty good job in that. But we have a fairly fun community in there, so it's free. I'd highly recommend it. If you're looking for a test prep website, there is amateurmedicine.com. Currently, we have study bundles for the EMT-B and the AEMT. It has practice questions. It has PDFs to download. It has a bunch of different tools that you can utilize to help you pass the National Registry. But if you have any questions, again, feel free to comment below. I love answering them all. It's just really hard to keep up. Anyway, thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next one. See ya.